Chaim, can you hear me? It's a Verizon commercial. Can you hear? Let's assume whoever's on can hear.
Yes.
Okay, let me try and remember some of this. We thank Hashem for giving us the ability and this list to learn.
May we have Mashiach.
What?
May we have
May we have Mashiach now, Mamash. Yeah, I can get a class maybe. All right. And learning Elias and Nishmas, Goda Zahava Bas Baruch Ben Yamin, and Zevi, I don't know, Ben Zion, I don't remember his exact name. Anybody else that needs Aliyah up in Shemayim to come down quickly. And Refuah Shlema to the rabbi's father, and which I don't remember his name as
Jimmy.
well. What?
Jimmy.
And Jimmy, and anybody else that needs Refuah Shlema. All right, let's go. We learned last night, and we now we almost caught up. We're up to Mem Daled, which does not stand for MD, as someone jokingly said to me. It stands for 44, and B. So it's Amud Beis, and we got a little bit more than halfway down. Tana Rabbanan. Minayin Shekipeh Lo Vidui. All right. So where do we learn that when Achan, that's the story we ended up yesterday, that Achan had done so many different sins at the time of Yoshua. You know, he was inappropriate with a Nara Hamarosa, with a 12-year-old who was engaged. He stole the spoils of the city of Yericho. He, I don't remember, it was just mentioning a whole bunch of stuff. It could have been he did 5 sins. It could be he sinned all the various of the that are in the Torah. This was what we learned last night, all right? So if you haven't learned it, just go back and you see he really deserved punishment, chorus, right? So then
Rennie, you're on the top. You're on the top of Mem Daled.
No, I'm about 2/3 of the way down Tana Rabbanan in the middle page. The line begins Shekipeh Lo Vidosov.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Good to see you. All right. So bridge was stuck. What, coming down the middle? All right. Anyway, so Minayin Shekipeh Lo Vidui. So how do we know that the vidui that Achan did brought him atonement? Shenem Aviyam Lo Yeshua Me'achartanu Yarakecha Hashem Hayam Bayam. How's that? For it is stated, and Yeshua said to Achan, why have you ruined us? God shall ruin you on this day. This implies Hayam Hazeh Atachor. On this day you are ruined. But in the Olam Haba, in the future, you won't be ruined. The Chsiv, V'nei Zerach, Zimri, the Esan, the Heman, the Chalko, the Dara, Kulam Chamisha. And then there's a statement about these 5 sons of Zerach, all right? And it enumerates the sons. And it says that they're a total of 5. Now, Zimri, who's mentioned in there, is not referring to the Zimri that did the sin with the woman that, what's his name? Spirit.
Simeon Cosby.
Cosby, yeah. Last night I couldn't remember Cosby's name. Right. Jimmy and Cosby, it's not that one. This is just another name we're going to learn for Achan. My kulam chamisha. So first, what does it mean 5 in all? Kulam chamisha hein le'olam haba. It teaches us that when they were all put to death, even Zimri, who was actually Achan, all right, he's going to go to Olam Haba. V'lama nikra'u nikra shmo Zimri. So if his name was Achan, why was he called Zimri? Shasa masa Zimri. Because amongst the sins he did, one of them was his blatant Zimri. Zimri had relations with a married woman. He had relations with a minor that was engaged. And why was he also called Achan? So we're actually seeing here that these 5 people are really not 5. Oh, wait, no, excuse me. So we explain why it's called Zimri. So if he was called Zimri, then why did you need to call him Achan? So why do you have to have 2 names? So why was he also called Achan? Shiken Avanosenu She Yisrael, because he wound the iniquities of Israel around the nation like a snake. All right, just like a snake will think of a python, will go round and round in the spiral to squeeze to eventually kill its prey. Achan was essentially acting like a snake. All right, and that's where the meaning of the word comes from, because he wound the iniquities of the Jews. He caused the Jewish people to suffer punishment for the sins, bringing about the defeat at the hands of Ai. And that's why at Ai, we mentioned last night that almost 36 people were killed as a result, 36 people of the Sanhedrin. And then we said there's a machlokes, was it really 36 or was it almost 36? And the machlokes was, it's almost 36 mean, it was 35, or were they referring to the son of Menashe, who was so smart, he was as smart as the majority of the Sanhedrin, which would have been 36. I think maybe we'll read that now. Okay. Now, what if the person, I think we read this last night. If he didn't know how to do vidui, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, so he says, let him just say, let my son be an atonement for all my sins except for this one. All right? Nakas Atzman. Okay, that's what we had read before. That's where the guy said to himself, wait a minute, I'm not guilty of this. I got framed. They believe these Adim, and they're giving me an execution. But so why should I confess to something I didn't do? All right. But he has to say confession. So they say, you know what? Just say you confess to all your sins, except for this one. All right. To clear themselves in the public eye. All right. So the other sages replied to him, if that's what he's going to say, to tell him to say, then all the guys who are convicted and are going to be stoned or whatever way they'll be killed, they're all going to say this. Why? Because they know where they're going. If they say vidui, they'll get into heaven, right? Because God's a forgiving God. All right. But they don't want the people who they leave around to have a smear campaign against them. Oh, that family, they are the guy that he caused this, that. So they're all going to just lie and say the same thing. Yeah, God forgive me, except for this one. So people hear that. Anyway. V'niku atzman, and they'll get themselves off the hook, all right? So why is there such concern here in the Gemara that we disallow this form of confession? The Gemara answers, we don't want to cast a dispersion or aspersion, it says here, on the courts and their witnesses. The Gemara introduces a related brisa. Let's see what it says here. Tan Rabban. The rabbis taught in the brisa. It happened to be a story where a guy was being brought out, the wicked guy, and he was going to be executed. He says, if I have truly committed this sin, which I have been, let my death not atone for any of the sins I have accumulated over my lifetime. Sounds almost contradictory. But now we're going to show something that's contradictory actually to the statement we just said previously. But if I've not committed this sin, right, so the guy's being brought out, says, look, I know you killed me, but I really didn't do it. So in that price, it says, he's saying, let it be a kapara, let it be an atonement for all my sins. And all the court, and let the court and all Israel be free from blame for my death. But these witnesses that caused this death, all right, this execution of mine, they should never be forgiven forever. All right. And when the sages heard what this man said, they said, we can't return him to the courthouse and overturn the conviction because already we sat. We came with a majority of at least two, and we decide shekvar nigzera gezerah. We made a gezerah that he has to be executed. Ela Yeharek, so we have to kill him. The koler talui b'tzavar edim, and let the collar of the responsibility hang from the neck of the witnesses. Right, that's very interesting. In other words, so the sages were moved by this. They still had to do it, but they said, the kapara should be on, on the witnesses. I remember when I was young, my mother, she rest in peace, would say to me sometimes if I was doing some that wasn't right. I mean, very young. She said, "Don't worry, it'll be a kapara on me. I'll take it." It's like she didn't want me to. I don't know where that came from, but
it's probably because before you bar mitzvah, everything was on them.
Is that what?
I don't know.
I thought you just never responsible. I didn't know that the parents, put on the hook for it. Anyway, the Gemara therefore questions. Pshita, it's obvious.
Someone has to be on the hook.
Someone has to be on. Kol kamine. But is it really in the power of the convicted to cast doubt upon the integrity of the witnesses? Because that's what we just said from that brisa. So why did the sages believe him so much that they virtually condemned the witnesses? They basically said the witnesses, you're conspirators, all right? And because it seems like they agree with it. So Gemara answers, Lo tricha de kahadre behu sahade. This condemnation that the sages did against the witnesses was in this particular case because the witnesses recanted their testimony. All right. Ooh. So upon hearing this condemned man make this declaration, then they admitted that they themselves they were their own zomim in a way. All right.
There used to be a children's book about the story of the 80 witches.
Don't say anymore because that's coming up.
That's the story. Yeah.
So we have such a smart class and went through this whole last night with Hillel. You guys know everything that's showing up in the next few lines of the Gemara, and it's already coming out. You can't even hold yourself back. But we're going to do the 80 witch story. It's not a children's book. It might have been the children's book based on the story that we're going to learn here. Shimon Shetach, I think. But even if the witnesses did recant of what significance is it? All right. It was okay. So the witnesses now recanted the thing, but it's already too late. Because once a witness has testified and we came to a conclusion in the Beis Din and this guy's convicted, we can now go and ask him to start everything again and alter his testimony. So why did the sages regard the witnesses' retraction seriously enough to denounce them for the conspiracy? Conspiracy theory. The condemnation given by the sages was necessary only because in this case, the witnesses also provided a plausible motive to explain why they would have lied in giving the original testimony. All right. So they had an excuse. They said they hated so-and-so and therefore they conspired. The difference between, this is not a joke, between an excuse and a reason. A reason is true. An excuse is baloney. It's just giving what sounds like a reason to get out of the situation. I'm very good at giving excuses. All right. Finding reasons is not so hard. And my wife is so smart. She always knows what's the difference between the two. All right. Okay. In the original testimony, indeed, what transpired was similar to an incident involving Baya, the tax collector. And you say, what was the incident? And now we're going to hear the story. All right. There was a condemned person. And at 4 amas, All right, so for this, about 6 feet from the stoning grounds, we're learning what exactly happens before the stoning. Mafshitin so. Oh, wait. Let me tell you what that story is. That story was that that there was a terrible tax collector. All right, very mean tax collector, and there was a very good rav, like a high rav, in the town. They both died the same day, so they both were having funerals the same day. As they were about to start the funerals and do a procession with the coffins, they were raided by, thieves.
FBI, CIA.
The typical guys hanging out in the forest or whatever.
FBI,
bad guys.
CIA.
No. So anyway, so everybody took off. All right, and then when it was quiet, they came back. All right, and unfortunately, or the way the story was, this long procession that was following the Chacham followed the wrong casket, the one of this bad guy, and then the few people, if any, that were following the bad guy followed the Chacham. So, man, this was like, a disgrace. Yeah. So one of his Talmidim, actually, I guess, who had never left or was aware which casket was appropriate, tried to convince all these people, hey, come back, you're on the wrong side. You're following this bad tax collector. And anyway, the funerals went on, happened. And afterwards, I guess in his dream or whatever, the Chacham came to this student and said, don't worry, I'm in Gan Eden. He said, but why did this happen like this? It's very similar to the story with the guy who went to mikvah by the lake, and took his clothes off and then someone stole his money. There's always a reason for why things happen. All right. There's no such thing as coincidence. It's just Hashem, I read, working in anonymity. All right. Anyway, so what happened here was that the tax collector once was making a big party for a very important person. All right. But what happened was the guy was a no-show. He didn't show up. So rather than throw out all the food, he gave all the food away, even though he's a bad guy. It shouldn't spoil, to all the poor people of the town. Oh, wow. And they all had a wonderful meal. All right. This Chacham, he was really super good, but he had made a certain mistake. All right. So he said, look, for kapara, for my mistake, I had to have this lousy funeral, but don't worry, Hashem forgave me. I'm up in heaven. He says, but this guy, here we're coming to your story. This bad guy, he, because he did good, Hashem gave him this nice funeral, going away present. All right, but he's in Gan Eden, and he's going to stay in Gan Eden. Here's your story, Naphtali, until Shimon ben Shetach will die, who was the head at that time of Bnei Yisrael. All right, so one Talmud, when the Talmud heard that story, he goes, "Oh my God!" He goes, "I don't want Shimon ben Shetach to die." He's going to he'll end up switching places with him or something like that. So he runs off to Shimon ben Shetach and he tells him this story, this and that. And as the story goes, Shimon ben Shetach was guilty because he was letting 80 witches be alive at that time. All right. So they took the witches and they ended up, Shimon Shetach got a group of people together and they ended up hanging the witches. Because one of the ways, by the way, you take away supposedly a witch's power of sorcery is you lift them off the ground. As long as they're on the ground, they have the power.
You got to sweep them off their feet.
See, sweep them off their feet. All right. So anyway, so that's the story. The 80 witches were hung. Naphtali, and then someone ended up, according to you, writing a children's book. How this ended up as a children's book, I don't know. It would be related, I don't see how it's rated PG. But anyway, okay. So now, what happens when he's about 6 feet away from the stoning grounds? Again, we're going to learn, and we did learn that the stoning grounds is a building or a mound or a mountain cliff that's at least 3 times the height of a man. So say it's about 18 feet. Okay. So when he gets within 6 feet of their 4 amas, mafshidan so espagadav. All right, we strip him of his clothes. Ish mechasin also milfanov. A man, we after we strip him, we give him like a loincloth to cover. We're still concerned about tznius. All right, even when we're going to kill somebody. All right, so we cover a man in his front. Fa'isha milfanav echra divrei Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda says if it's a woman who's going to be killed, we give her 2 loincloths. I guess it's like a bikini. It's something that's going to cover the front and the back at the same time. The Chamim amrim ha'ish nisko arum, but the Chamim say the man is stoned unclothed. All right, Veina ish in this kelis aruma, but a woman is not uncovered at all from tznius. We're now up to 45a, or else do as much as we can because that's today's daf. Tarabanan, top of 45a, Gemara. The man, they remove his clothing and they give him a loincloth just to cover himself in the front. And we just said this, a woman gets two pieces, one for the front and one for the back to cover her more modestly. Because otherwise all her nakedness would be revealed. In other words, all the parts of her that we definitely have to have covered. The Chamim sages say Aishnisko Arum, but the Chamim say, we're just repeating this in a way that the man is still stoned without clothes. But Isha is not unclothed. All right, that was just repetition. My time of the Rabbanan. So what's the reasoning of the Rabbanan? Why do they maintain that the woman, all right, has her clothes on, but the man doesn't, even though we do give him a loincloth? I'm a crowd, because the pasuk says, "V'ragmo also," and they shall stone him. Right? It's plural. My also. What does it mean? They shall stone him. Ilema also below asa. Maybe you'll say it means him and not her. In other words, only you stone when stoning is the appropriate method of execution. Males, but not females. But wait, that's a problem. It can't be that, because we have a pasuk that says in Dvarim, and you take out the man or you take out the woman that's guilty. All right. So obviously you can stone both of them. All right. Obviously, and the woman may also be stoned. Elamai also. So what do we learn from the word also, him, or also below ksuso? It teaches that he's stoned without his clothing. All right. But the woman is stoned with her clothing. Gemara now explains Rabbi Yehuda, who dissented on this, his view. The word implies also below ksuso, without his clothing. Lo shna ish, lo shna isha. The verse makes no distinction whether it's a man or a woman. The Gemara analyzes the dispute between Rabbi Yehuda and the sages. Remember the Rabbana Chaysha Lahirahura. This is to say, sages were concerned that bystanders who would be seeing this woman who is now inappropriately clothed or essentially not clothed, they're going to have machshava zoros, lewd thoughts. All right, it's not kind of a time that someone would really have that, but that's what they were. Rabbi Yehuda lo chaysha le'ahura. Rabbi Yehuda says, no way, that kind of situation, those thoughts don't come into mind. Ibcha shamata lahu. But in another Mishnah, we heard that these Tanam take the opposite view. This none we learned in the Mishnah concerning a sota. All right, so let's go back. We've learned this before. Well, some of you learned it before. Hakoina soba vigda. The Kohen takes hold of her garments. That's while they're on her. All right.
Cover her hair.
This is it. Right there he goes again. These lines ahead. In nikro niframu. So if they tore, they tore. And if they became tattered, they became tattered. Achimagalas liba. But it stops until he gets to her bosom. Right? The sotas Sarah, this is what Hillel just said, and he unbraids her hair. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Im haya liba na'a lo haya megala. If she was attractive in the frontier, all right, he doesn't come close. He doesn't go to uncover it anymore. Im haya sura na'a, and if she had beautiful hair, then he wouldn't unbraid it. All right. So you don't want to make the sota attractive. So it's just the opposite of what we just learned about when they did skila for the woman, that uh, that they were saying you the chachamim had said you do that they might the onlookers might get machshava zaras, might get lewd thoughts. All right, but so what's going on here? Because it's the same situation. Don't say anything because I know you figure this out right. Marabba, I know timer. This is what happens. The reason is, remember, what happens if we find out in the end that the sultan is not a sultan? All right, she goes free. So if she goes free and there were bystanders watching and they saw the attractive parts of her, they might say, oh, she's a free woman, but she's not, she can go back to her husband. You know, I'm going to be interested in her. But the other woman is dead. And they're not people that are into narco, whatever it's called. What's the word? Whatever. They're not into dead people. You're right. No, this isn't the fifth element. Doesn't see people. All right. Shema tetim mi beis din zaka. So there, in the case of Sota, he is concerned that perhaps the Sota will leave the court, having been found innocent. Yiskaro ba pirchei kahuna, and the young Kohanim, they were aroused at seeing her, and they're going to go after her. But here in the case of the stoning, the woman is executed immediately after she was exposed. So there's no fear that the bystanders will later attempt any licentious acts with her. The Gemara continues. We're on 45, 45a on the way moving. Perhaps those observing her will be provoked to do licentious acts with other women. We learned the other day about, I don't remember who it was, that in his wife put kind of pornographic type of sculptures, pictures in his chariot so that he would, remember we just learned this a few days ago, so that I guess she wasn't so attractive, so that maybe that might turn him on, all right, so that after he was finished the war, he wanted to go home and be with his wife. This was a couple days ago.
I wasn't here.
All right, so see what you missed? Okay. Amar Rabbah, we can reply that this concern has no basis. All right, for Rabbah says, Gemire and Yetzara shalat ela b'misha ein avros. It doesn't work that way. It says, according to Rabbah's opinion, the Yetzirah is after the one you saw, all right, that attracted you, not of somebody else, all right, according to Rabbah. The answer just given by Rabbah has resolved the contradiction between the two statements of Rabbi Yehuda. It does not, however, touch upon the contradiction between the two statements of the Chachamim. The Gemara therefore asks, Amar Rabbah, the Rabbi Yehuda or the Rabbi Yehuda Kasha? Do you suppose that there's a conflict between the two statements of Rabbi Yehuda? The Rabbanan lo Kasha said, and not between the two statements of the sages. This is actually a question, right? Why have you given an answer for only by Rabbi Yehuda and not Rabbanan? He says, Ela Amar Rava. So Rava says to Rabbi Yehuda lo kasha. Now, it's not really a kasha by Rabbi Yehuda. All right, Shanin, as Rava has answered, the Rabbanan lami no kasha. And guess what? It's really not a kasha. It's not a question with what appears to be conflicting statements by the Chachamim. Amakra, because the pasuk says, Torah says, the reason the sages require the shelter to be exposed, at least to a certain extent, is because the verse states, "V'nivasru kol hanashim v'lo tasena kizimaschena." All the women shall be chastised and shall not act similar Hold on. Similarly, that's a tongue twister to your lewdness. In other words, there were women bystanders there too. And the bystanders, the women would see what's going on and they said, whoa, I don't ever want to be in this position.
Yeah.
And so therefore they wanted to do that. So she's exposed because her degradation would deter other women from doing as she's done. In this case of the stoning, remember right afterwards, you die, we don't have to humiliate the condemned woman. Because there's no greater chastisement than the fact that you're executing her. Well, I mean, what could be more embarrassing? So you're killing her, all right? And if you're going to say, let us do both. Let us execute her and let's humiliate her at the same time. Could this create even a greater deterrent against anyone? So we have an answer. So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avuha. So Rav Nachman said in the name of Rabba bar Avuha, Amar Kra, it says in the pasuk, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. All right, love your fellow as yourself. Famous pasuk. All right, in the Vayikra. Right, you shall love your fellow as yourself. Bro lo mita yafa. So from that you learn that even when it comes to a death, an execution, you still should do it as nice as possible. I mean, look, Jews, look at this. Even when we're going to have to execute somebody, we care about the tznius part. We care about the pain and the suffering and how it should be done. We'll go into detail now. Rav Nachman Tanahi, and let's say that according to Rav Nachman, a favorable death, is still an argument by the Tanaim. We'll show. The Gemara responds, "Lo, the Kuliyama is lahu the Rav Nachman." No, everyone agrees and accepts this principle of Rav Nachman. So, what is the sages and Rabbi Yehuda are arguing about? Biz yone the inish adifa leitve minacha de gufe. So one holds that it's more degrading to one. Someone in the comfort is all right. Let me just read it the way it says. This master, and there's a Chachamim holds that personal degradation is a more significant consideration to someone than the comfort of his own body. Which he'll forego the comfort in lieu of being degraded, the embarrassment. Listen how he explains it. And the other one holds no. It's the comfort of his body is more important than being degraded. All right. So basically, what they're saying is one person says, and I don't know if we're going to learn this now or it was explained because I go ahead, the whole daf to prepare this. But basically, if you take his clothes off the man, then it's easier to kill him because there's no protective armor. Okay. But if he has clothes on or she has clothes on, all right, because of the tznius, so she might not die because she had some protection from her clothes against the stoning. All right. So it depends how you look at it. So maybe, the one who feels that they're more concerned about, a quicker death and not the tznius, take the clothes off, kill him. All right. The one who's more concerned about the tznius than the comfort, well, they might take some extra stones, all right, but leave the clothes on. All right, Mishnah now describes the procedure for the execution by stoning. The elevation, the stoning ground was twice the height of a man. All right, it says twice the height. The average man is a height of 3 amas. All right, so let's just say it's 6 feet. All right. 3 amas is really 3 times 1.5, 3, 4. This guy's a short guy, but let's just say 6 feet, 18 feet, right? 15 to 18 feet. The condemned man is made to stand sideways at the edge of this elevation, and there, and then one of the witnesses push him by the hips so that he'll fall to the ground on his side, and hopefully that kills him. That's step one in stoning. Hopefully it ends there. Not b'chal libo, but if he falls on his chest, all right, and he's still alive, I guess, hapcho al musnav, so we turn him over onto his hips, the mace b'yatza, and if he was dead, you don't have to do anything more, he says. He love, but let's say he guy's still alive. So they take this special stone, noto as ha'evan, no alibo, and they use this stone and they throw it onto his chest. All right, they're doing a negative CPR. They're going to try and kill him with one stoning on his chest. Imeis bayatza, and if he dies from this one stone, all right, which I guess was a big stone, we'll find out. Then they accomplished the execution. Being love, but what if he's still not rigmusa b'chol Yisrael? His stone is carried out by all of Israel. All right, so actually we're going to go into detail that there's two guys up. Well, we're going to do it. So we see Shnema Yad Ha'edim Tiabo Barishana Lamiso V'Yad Koam B'Achwana, because it says the hands of the Edim have to initially do the killing, and then only afterwards, if that didn't work, everyone else that's around joins in and stones him. So it was also taught in the Brisa, the Kama Shalo, and his own height, and there was his own height too, Hare Kan Shalosh. So here we have an elevation, and the Brisa is talking about there was 3 times his height, not twice his height, because we include his height as well. So Gemara asks, and do we really need that much height to kill him? You need to go and take him all the way up to 18 feet high, where you couldn't kill him from a lower level. When we knew, all right, and this contrasts with the following Mishnah, all right, Ma boy sharei kedei shehug kedei lamis asar tvachim. When it comes to a pit, all right, that is deep enough to cause death, we're only talking about 10 tvachim, 10 fists. All right, so what's that? A meter altogether? I mean, it's not much of a distance. All right, so they really say just as the average pit is deep enough to cause death, being at least 10 handbreadths deep. Avko kidei lamito asar tvachim. So we should say any type of. We learn there any other type of excavation that's at least 10 enough deep enough to cause death. All right, meaning 10 tvachim, 10 handbreadths, should also, the person who has that should be liable for accidental deaths. So evidently, then the fall from a mere height of 10 breaths is sufficient to cause death, according to this other Mishnah, right, or Brisa. So why is our Mishnah saying no? You got to go up to height greater than 9 amas. If you can say each man is at least 3 amas, and we have to go to 9 amas, all right, so 15, 18, whatever, 9 amas high. The Gemara answers, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua. So what does he say? Amakra, love your fellows, you love yourself. For Allah Misa Yafa, give him a good death. We're repeating this, right? I didn't go back tonight. All right. So if you bring them to a higher elevation, that surely will give him a quick death. He'll die the first time around. All right. And we won't have to go and afterwards start stoning, him like crazy. If so let's raise. Why don't we just raise it to 4 stories, 5 stories? Let's drop him off a 6-story building, guys. Let's make sure he really dies. All right, you read ahead.
No.
Oh, you guessed that. Right where Hiller goes, he's going to be splattered all over the place. And that's what it says. Mishim demi novel, because it would cause his body to become really grotesque. Because who knows what will happen from that high. So just use the minimum requirement, which in this case is in 10 tvachim, but almost assuredly, will be 9 amas. So how exactly was he pushed? So remember, there's 2 Adam. So one of them pushes him, all right, off, okay? And then we're going to bring up Brian. brisa. Tayraban minayin shebedchia. So where's it known that this pushing mechanism, that's how the stoning begins, so to say, that he falls off, hits actually the ground, which is a stone, and therefore he's been stoned. All right, Talmud Loma Yora. We learned it by Har Sinai. It says, he shall be hurled down. Minayin b'skila, and from where is it derived? Execution by stoning. Talmud Loma, Torah says he shall be stoned. All right. Hold on. This is Purim. Let me see. Okay. And from where is it derived that when one method fails to kill the offender, he should be executed by both stoning and pushing? Talmud Lama, Sako Yisakel or Yaro Yireh, because there's a double lashon, a double verbiage for those is written in the Torah. Let's just continue. So how do we know that if he died from just the pushing, that that we were Yotze, we fulfilled the court fulfilled the obligation of stoning him? Talmud Loma or Yoro Yoreh for the Torah states, or he shall surely be hurled down. Mian Shafladoris came. And from where was it derived that this even applies for future generations too? With top of Mem Hey, Talmud Loma, Sako Yisakel. All right. So we just brought a whole bunch of psukim that teaches us that you push and you stone them. All right. And it's brought from Har Sinai. You can look it up in more detail. So Gemara cites the next part of the Mishnah. Let's see how far we can go, be up to date. So if the first witness pushed him, but the guy didn't die, then it says the second witness goes, he picks up the stone, which is available there, and he throws it on his chest. It says, no, the Gemara says, question, is it really surely he picks up the stone? Vatanya, then we bring in another brisa. Every time we mention something, the Gemara brings another brisa to try and contradict it, and then the Gemara in the end tries to resolve it as a mediator, or find the different reasons, right, in the places. If it was torn in the brisa, Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Rab Shimon ben Elazar said, Evan Hayas Hashem, they prepared the stone for that area. Masri Shnei B'nei Adam. And its weight was so heavy, that stone, that it took two people to carry it. Notla, he would pick it up, Alibo. All right, but we just said that the second witness goes and he takes the stone and he throws it on the chest. He makes Bayatza, and he dies from this, that's sufficient. So if it was too heavy for him to carry, it took two men to move that stone. So how can one man pick it up and throw it on the stone and cast it down himself? The Gemara replies, according to your reasoning, Tikshul Allah he gufa. This brisa you have cited is problematic for you, Mishum Shnei B'nei Adam, because the stone's weight took two men to move, not Nin Al Libo, and he would take it still two men to throw it on him. Rather, you must say that the witness picks it up along with this fellow, Shadei La Ihu, and then he casts it down. So the stone will come down on the condemned person more forcefully. All right, so let's go over it. There's two, they bring everyone, the two witnesses bring up the man who's convicted to the top of this thing, 9 amos. All right, whatever it is, a rooftop, a hilltop, a cliff, whatever. And the first witness pushes him over. All right. He falls down on the ground. Then they come back down and they look and they say, whoops, he didn't die. Had he died, they were Yotze. They accomplished what they need to do for the basement. If he's still alive, they flip him over on his, they say on his hips, but it's probably got to be on his back, both hips. All right. And so they flip him on his sacrum so that they're going to be able to stone him on his chest. And then they go all the way back up. All right, because it takes two people to lift the stone, and both of them are lifting the stone. And then if you ever tried to move furniture, the last thing you do, one guy's got to let go so the other can do the final push or let down or whatever. So that's what happens here. The witness that had done the initial pushing lets go, and there's a momentum already there, and the second witness just pushes it. Now that stone falls over. Therefore, the second witness did the stoning, and it lands on his chest. Bullseye. All right. If it killed him, then the court did it. If not, everyone that's around has to pick up stones and stone him until he's dead. What?
But if they both pick it up, why do they give the credit to the second person?
Because he's the one that pushes it. The first one pushed the man. The second one pushes the stone. He just needs the initial help, like the mover to help him move the furniture. And that's why he lets go, the first one, the last second, and lets one push. All right. Mishnah. If the condemned had not died the result of the stone, then the stone is carried out by all of Klal Yisrael. Well, not Klal Yisrael, all the people that are there. The Gemara questions. Tanya, it was taught in the Brayso, it never happened that a person repeated the stoning procedure. Oh, beat that, saying, guess what? We learned all this, but this never really happened. Sounds like Ben Sora Mara. Wait, I think we're going to say that. Mikamina David, did I state that the Mishnah states that it actually happened that way? It says, the mitzvah kamine. I only stated that this is what we would have to do if it happens this way. So we're learning what would happen. All right. We have other cases like that. Like is it Pigel that never really happened, but we still learn the laws. You know, we learn things, even if that's what he does. We learn. You know, we learn what to do in this situation, that situation. Doesn't mean you have to be in that situation. Or it may never even happen.
Sometimes by learning, it counts as you're fulfilling the mitzvah.
Yes, absolutely. Hillel said sometimes by learning counts like you're fulfilling the mitzvah. That's why we do korbanos in the morning. By reading the korbanos, we yotzi as if we fulfill the obligation, as if we brought sacrifices. Nowadays, when there's no Beis HaMikdash, hopefully that'll end very quickly, even before I walk out of this room. All right. The master said, there was a stone prepared in that area. We just mentioned this above. But Tanya, again, they're going to try and say, wait, we got a problem here. We learned that the Brayso, that stone, or a beam, because after it was stoned, he had to be hung up on the tree, or sword, in the case where someone was beheaded. All these articles of destruction, or scarf which he was strangulated with, they were all buried with him, with the corpse. All right. So he's saying, wait a minute. So if you buried that prepared stone with the corpse, then what happens for the next guy who's convicted? Well, we're going to explain that, first of all, the stone is not really buried with them. It's buried in the same, they dig a grave and they throw the stone there on the side. When you go to funerals and then there's, and they were shoveling afterwards and we're shoveling in the dirt to cover the caber. Sometimes we find these, typical stones here in Florida. They're in the pile, so we still throw that in, and we just throw it in on the side. It's filler. All right, lo tricha. No, the ruling of the Brayso is needed only to teach the matakne umaise achrine chilufayo, that after one stone is buried, so then they go and prepare another stone. So it's funny. This is the opposite of the famous Salah Shabbati and Keren Kayemes L'Yisrael, that when it was very popular when I was a kid to buy a tree for someone in Israel, and then the person would come to Israel and they want to see the tree that was planted, that they paid the dollar and they got this very fancy certificate. I might still even have an old certificate, or you got a stamp for it, whatever. So there was this, one of the first movies I ever saw, Salah Shabbati. It was an Israeli movie. So he was a comedian. So he had a sign there. And when the people came to visit and see the tree, it says, this tree planted by, John and Jane, whatever their name is. And then as they leave and thus people came up, he changed the sign in front of the same tree. All right. So there they changed the sign. It was the same tree. Here we end up changing the stones. Okay. Enough of humorous or ridiculous comment. All right. Nikbar Nimo. So the Brisa states that the instruments of execution are buried with them. Tanya, then we learn somewhere else that they're not buried with them. So how do we reconcile this? I'm Rav Papa, my emo. What does it mean that they're buried with him? Emo bisfisoso. It's in the occupied area within the daladamas of his body. We bury it. I just mentioned that. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel said, "Nikta yad ha'edim pasua." What if the hands of the witnesses became severed before the execution can be carried out? Right, the witnesses came to court, and at some point between after they gave the testimony and the final conviction based on the testimony, all right, one had an accident and lost his hand, all right, because it says the hand of the witness is the first one to kill him. So what if he has no hand?
Did we learn that the witness needed to have a hand?
Yeah.
Yes, we just learned that now. The pasuk says Yad ha'edim. The pasuk says that the hand of the edim, all right, has to be the first one to do them. That's how it's taught. Trust me. What? Just hang in there. All right. Yeah, Bobi Rishon. The hand of the witness shall be put to him to death. That's the pasuk in Devarim. All right, which unfortunately I don't have the hyperlink. You might, but if you look up number 9,
Would I have the hyperlink?
What? No, just look up number 9. It'll tell you the pasuk in Devarim.
17:7 in here. You have it quoted. Want to read it?
Okay, no, I won't read it. The point is that's what the sentence says that he should do. Now I lost my place.
But my question wasn't that.
What was your
My
question?
question was when we learned about the thing that disqualified a witness, we didn't say that.
No, because to be a witness, we didn't. No, you're jumping ahead.
No, here you're saying
You don't
that
have to have a
he lost
hand.
his hands
No,
between. What if he didn't have a hand to begin with?
that's the next question in the Gemara. Stop doing this. All right, but it shows how wise you are. You always think of the next question. All right, but now I lost my place here. Hold on a second. I know, but with these, the one thing about using this pad is when you jump around. No, hold on. Okay. We're down there in the last 7 minutes.
You can always
I'm going to keep you quiet for the last 7 minutes.
You can always do tshuva and go back to the book.
Buried with him. All right, hold on. Oh, come on, let me just jump back here. Okay. So Hillel's question was, wait a minute, we didn't learn that anything about hands until now. So the point is, the pasuk says in Dvarim that the hands of the witnesses are the first to execute them. So they had hands, we're saying, when they gave the testimony, although we're going to question that. And the question is, Jeff, don't send me things here. I need more things to move my mind off. I have ADHD, right? And if Rabbi Gasinski says that stands for attention deficit, hey, donuts, don't send me stuff and ask me questions. I'm not going to continue. Give me the Mikara Hachinami Tefsile. It says, what about if the witnesses didn't have hands at the beginning? Should they be disqualified? That's the next line. Right, the Gemara answers, Shani Hasam. There it's different. Damakra Yad HaEdim. For the verse states, the hand of the witnesses shall carry out the death penalty. Shayisa Kva, in other words, meaning that the witnesses had hands before. All right, but wait. So does that mean if they had hands before, they still have to have their hands at the time of the execution? Meisvei, they challenge this answer. Anytime we have 2 witnesses, all right, and they're testifying, saying, and they're saying, we testify against so-and-so, Shanik Madina based in Plony, that he's sentenced to die by the court, blah, 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 Plony, this guy, so-and-so and so-and-so were his witnesses, then this person is going to be killed. Apparently, then it's not necessary for the execution to be carried out by the convicted witness's own hands. That's, we're asking a question. So the Brisa seems to say that that's the preferred way of the execution. All right? It should be done by their own hands. But if they lost a hand, that doesn't mean that they can't do it, right? And we're not discussing right now that if a witness came who didn't have hands, that he couldn't be a witness, right? So the one-armed bandit, he witnessed this whole thing, and he came and he was a valid witness because he witnessed with his eyes. He's telling us exactly what happened and described the guy. As long as he answered all the, remember we learned the 7 interrogatory questions. It never says over there one of the questions that we asked the witness, do you have both hands? Okay. So Tagama Shmua Behen Hain Adain. So Shmuel interpret that the Mishnah says we're dealing with the situation where these witnesses came before are the same witnesses upon whose the testimony accused and was originally convicted. Thus, they're now available to carry out their execution with their own hands. So he's saying actually there were 2 Beis-Dins involved here, and the original witnesses, the first Beis-Din, well, I want to finish this topic hopefully next minute. They're coming now, and we can use them again. Do we really require a verse that's require verse to be fulfilled exactly as it's written by Tanya? You must, regarding the fate of the convicted brother, he who struck the man shall surely be put to death. He is a murderer. The word you must, this double lashon, this double verbiage, he shall be killed, put to death. That's only when you put him to death through the prescribed execution. From where it's derived that if you cannot put him to death through the prescribed execution, that you're still permitted to put him to death, in any way that you can. So from that we learn you should surely, again, the double words, put him to death. Mikol makom, in any manner, all right? In other words, if you can do it by stoning, so you do it by another myth. Shani Hashem, there in the case of murderer, is different. You must. We learned, again, the double lashon, and we can learn from that in general, the procedure for killing the person doesn't have to be exactly carried out. Let's stop here because it's time for davening. We will continue Mishum Dahava. So we're now just the 3rd line of the wide line. So we're only half a page behind. We'll resume Sunday morning, Mitzvah, 6 a.m. And hopefully Mashiach will be here.
Yes.
See you in the Beis Hamikdash.
Okay.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
See y'all. Shabbat Shalom. And thank you, hey, David and Eliezer for listening. Okay, have a good Shabbos. All right. I'm going to close this. Closing. Train to close. Leave. Leave me.